reach out to him.
Let's get some audio on here. Things are happening.
What's the first klimax question?
Oh, I saw that. You right?
This
Maybe.
is the only one.
Yeah. Is Instagram showing live for you? I see people joining, so it's just me. There it is. Got it. All right. How about the YouTubes? YouTube's even says we're live. So
YouTube is good.
I think we're good on everything now. Facebook says we're live. Yep. All right. Good morning.
All right, morning, everybody. Welcome to the 0340 bullshit Q&A live chat hour, quantum session.
We're flux capacitoring it up here.
I'm Javad Shadzi. This is Nate Stewart. We're here to answer all your questions about all things 034 and anything else you want to know. We do take a no BS direct response. We take a no BS. That was very indirect.
That was kind of a roundabout indirect response.
Yeah, we take a no BS direct approach to answering questions. So if you really want to know something, you want to hear someone actually answer it, please, by all means. Now, sometimes the answer is there's not a good answer, but that is the direct response, unfortunately. I get this sometimes on YouTube where like, you guys didn't even answer the question. And then I go like, watch it. I'm like, we totally answered the question.
You
In
missed
fact,
it. Yeah.
you probably won't find that right, correct response anywhere else. And if you ask an update question about when something's going to be ready or done, just know we may not answer it. We don't always have good answers for those. All right, so we got questions pouring in already.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
They're numbered this week.
They're numbered?
Yeah, well, that's new.
Sweet.
Someone says, I just realized that race climax files are live and didn't get notified. Am I the only one?
You're not the only one. No, we're putting them up. You'll see more and more coming up. Well, you won't see them, but they are going up on the server. So yeah, no, we'll have, I think, all of the boxes up very, very soon.
We're just doing it this morning, so
yeah,
we will make an email.
So there'll be an email going out once we've got the coverage up. But yes, all of the updates are coming along.
Yeah, tomorrow an email will be sent. So it's okay. You will know even if you didn't know yet. You
right. Yeah, we talked about it last week too.
Mm-hmm. Someone says, I watched the Need for Built 034 video. Nice job. Well, you can thank Need for Built. I think we were just here. One thing did bother me, Nick saying B9 with old rockers, no big deal. It's definitely a big deal considering Audi had to revise them.
Audi revises almost every part of the car, to be fair.
Yeah, I don't know what, I did watch it, and I do remember Nick mentioning it. It didn't necessarily bother me because I felt like what he said was pretty accurate.
It's not like we get a 2018 in the shop here and just instantly tear the heads off, do the valve rocker or the rockers. That's what we mean when it's not a big deal. It's not like you have to do this. You can't drive the car. You can't.
Yeah.
Even think about doing anything else until you've replaced the rockers.
Yeah. So keep in mind, someone saying no big deal is hyperbole. It could mean anything. So I'll clarify what Nick meant. It meant that there was no TSB, there was no recall. If you have a 2018 Audi S4, Audi didn't contact you and say, it's a big deal, you got to come in and change your rockers. So it's from that perspective. We've also seen very, very few actual issues with it. This is something we talk about all the time. Yeah. That I've spoken to dealer service managers who all say they've seen a few. It's not a big deal as far as every Audi S4 with those older rocker arms are failing. Yeah. So
I don't think our service department has seen one yet.
So the more I talk about this, I will say yes, it's literally not a big deal. There was a part revision, which is nice, and you can do that if you need to. But no, I don't think there's anything to be alarmed about.
If you want complete assurance that the rockers are not an issue, then update them.
There's a revised part, but I mean. On a B9 Audi S4, there's thousands of parts that Audi has revised, almost all that you don't even know about. So it's not a big deal. There's no need for panic or excessive concern. But thankfully, Audi did revise it, and it does seem to have been fixed in later cars. So
yeah, they're on the 4th revision of the turbo, but not everybody's running out and swapping turbos.
Yeah.
They'll modify, revise, and update. A ton through
I think
production.
the mentality that it's a big deal is what we see online.
It sucks when you have a failure. It's a terrible failure. That's the problem. So yeah, if you want to be alleviated of that worry, then you can update.
Yeah. What's every mod I can do to make my supercharger whine? I mean, it really has to do with the intake.
Intake's the biggest.
And the harder you run the supercharger, I guess.
And then, pulley ratios are going to make a big difference. The throttle body does open it up a bit. So I mean, if you really want to get,
that's also the intake.
It's all the intake, right? It's just opening that path to the impellers.
So I would say S34 intake, super duper throttle body upgrade, and then run the highest pulley ratio you feel comfortable with to achieve the power that you're making. But once you do the intake, the whine is substantially increased because the factory does a lot to suppress the supercharger whine stock.
You can even go if you're doing other services on the supercharger. There's a bunch of sound dampening blankets around it. You can remove those if you want even more noise.
Yeah,
some of those are going to be injector noise as well, so you get some side effects. Other engine noises in there as well. But you can let her sing with some real pretty simple mods.
Yeah, and then also if you just don't give the supercharger what it wants when it asks for it, you'll probably hear a lot of whining too. It's just like kids. When can we expect updates for the 034 CREC files?
Those, I believe, are entirely updated on the server right now for stage 1. Stage 2 and 2 Plus are coming very soon. We have 91, 93, 100, and E85 files up right now. And then there's also updates being uploaded imminently for the transmissions to go along with those. So all of the A8.5 ones. Yep. Yeah. Lots of updates coming for CREC.
Yeah, we'll announce more about that.
And then I'm just putting together the new data for the new tunes right now. So
yeah, and support for clutch delete as well as a clutch delete hardware. We will offer a steel version and a titanium version that's about half the weight.
Yep.
I'm currently running one on my Q7 with the new updated software. Yep. It's really nice. The clutch delete's really nice. It's pretty transformative to the throttle response and how power is engaged. It's pretty like you almost blame it on the fact that it's an automatic or something, but a lot of that delay and lagginess is in the clutch factory clutch.
Yeah, that's quite a bit of mass or inertia to spin up there when that clutch engages and disengages.
Yeah, so and it's just you tip into the throttle and then it hits a second. It's like built-in lag that doesn't help the driving experience at all.
Mm-hmm.
When is the Climax transmission tune available for the B8? This is an update question, but
we've said this before. We want to get all the B8.5 stuff, updated and rolled out, and then the B8 is coming right along behind it. If you want to get, into it as early as possible, hit us up and request, either beta or early adopter, whatever you want to call it. We're going to open that up similarly like we did with the 8.5 Climax files.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you're a good fit and want to do that, let us know.
I own a Mark 8 GTI with your software. I use 91 octane fuel with methanol injection kit. I flashed with 93 octane map. Do you recommend other, or should I go with as is?
That's a impossible to answer question without looking at the data, but we don't generally like to rely on water meth. It's a fickle beast, and I have yet to see a long-term solution or installation that anyone's done that's really been rock solid reliable. So if you're on it, you're maintaining it, you're really paying attention to it all the time, sure, do it, it's your car, do what you want, but we do not generally recommend them just because it's never been no matter how much people spend on it or how expensive the kit is, I have not yet seen one that's been a fully trusted, reliable solution.
Yeah. And we do not recommend running a 93 octane map with 91 and water map.
Again, because it's,
you have no idea if your octane is actually
the octane change, and then the per cylinder distribution is usually all over the place with water meth. Usually depending on where you put the nozzle, you'll get a much heavier deposition in like the rear cylinders and the manifold, or vice versa if you got the nozzles pointed somewhere else. So it's not something we generally try and lean on. I know a lot of people run them, and a lot of people will swear by them, but we have a lot of data that shows that they're not, you know, a super well engineered solution to that problem.
Yeah, I really kind of wish water meth would just die, go away.
And the problem is it does work, and there are people that, you know, it is making some things faster.
The meth is
yes, the additional fueling, but most, you know, people don't know or don't understand the consequences or even know what's going on, and it just happens that they're getting away with it for X amount of time.
We have long clip outs about this if you want to go watch them,
yeah,
on why, you know, water meth does sometimes make more power.
Yeah, and yeah, it does work in some situations, but again, relying on it for your day to day is
it's not, and nothing that you can say I now have 93 octane, the equivalent of 93. You cannot say that. There's no way. So you do stand a chance of either making less power or damaging your engine.
Yeah, until you get into the really crazy advanced setups where you've got per port injection that is properly metered with full, you know, basically fueling distribution control.
Yeah.
That's when you can start looking at relying on it. But when you put a nozzle in a tube, it gets...
Well, and it would be something that we develop here at 034 Motorsport, and there's a map for it, and we say run a, you know, X amount of meth, and it's a very defined system.
Yeah. And ideally, there's feedback to the stock ECU for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you know if things are working. You've got flow meters, and you've got you know, obviously your closed loop control working. So
yeah. All right. Let's see. Someone's asking about Apple CarPlay.
Yeah, if we're adding it to the app, we've talked about this before. The Apple CarPlay and the Android Auto stuff is very restricted on what you're allowed to show at all on the app. So it may not be that you'll get a full like stack of gauges on your dash, just because that's not an allowed widget on the interface. Essentially,
just like all Apple stuff, it's very locked down.
It's Android too. Yeah, it's you can get away with and I've done this in my car. If you have an aftermarket, the Magic Box or a couple others, anything you can do a screen mirroring to your center console, then yeah, you can get all your gauges already. That works right now. We've got a lot of people doing that. And I've done that myself.
My transmission shifting between 1 to 3 is jittery at low speeds. I have your TC tune with stage 2 plus dual pulley on my C7 A6. Is this a tune issue or a hardware issue?
It should not be. I mean, I have not heard that. We are updating those right now. You can always flash back to stock on the TCU too if you're suspecting there's something not driving. It'll work totally fine, especially at low load, low speed stuff.
Yeah, that would be something you could do to troubleshoot it.
Just to troubleshoot. But yeah, we are updating those. But yeah, get in touch with tuning at 034motorsport.com. We can advise you further as well.
Yeah, shoot tuning support an email, and we'll be able to go through it with you. Once we look at your logs, we can tell you a lot more.
Yep.
Those of us with a B9.5 and a locked TCU, are we stuck at stage 1 ECU, or can we go stage 3 with the TCU patch?
You can go all the way up. Generally, we don't recommend the 3 plus just because that's kind of pushing it you know, outside the realm of where that TCU is kind of mapped and for.
Yeah, you're not stuck at all.
Up through stage 3, we've got a bunch of guys.
Stage 3 standard output and everything below, no problem.
Yeah.
Getting harder to find E85 that is 60% or higher. Any plans to make an E40, E60 tune for the B9 SQ5?
We don't have plans for that at this time. I don't know. This is the first I've heard of somebody having a hard time getting above 60, though. That's pretty low. Yeah, we'll have to talk about that.
Around here, it's always like 80%.
Yeah, we're around 80 on everything.
Yeah, it's really good.
Year round. But I know.
What's the brand that we get?
Propel for the most part.
The Propel stuff's really good.
It's been super consistent since they put the pumps in like 10 years ago.
Stav says Stav. I don't know what Stavros says. Anyone know why Nate and Javad don't seem to age?
Oh, dude, you are.
That's not true.
Your eyes are aging fast as we are then, because there are signs.
My driver's license is basically from 10 years ago, and I was flying this weekend, and the TSA guy had to stop me and was like, okay, hold on. And made me take off my glasses and was touching my face to see so yeah, no, the aging is brutal. And once you hit 40, it's dog years. It's exponential aging. So I look back from 20 to 30, I gained some weight, but not much. and then 30 to 40, definitely a little bit, and then 40 to 50, it's like, who is that? It's like unrecognizable. So yeah, it's a downward spiral. It's a free fall.
Without a shoe, you're just
and I've had lots of plastic surgery done too, as you can tell. Oh God. Someone says, question for Javad, do you believe that a man has walked on the moon? Yes, I do. I do believe we've been to the moon, and I do believe
a couple times even
that the Earth is round.
Yeah.
Or a
It
sphere.
is a sphere. It is more than just round.
It's real.
Birds are real. Birds are a thing.
I think most birds are real, although there's probably a few fake ones that are like spying on
We've
us.
had some weird. We've had homing pigeons landing on our house lately, of all things. Like somebody's got
or they
homing
have
pigeons. In their
homes.
house. Yeah, well, fair, but yeah, they got little like bracelets on.
Actually, have you heard about the tragedy of pigeons?
Tragedy of five?
So pigeons are not there's no wild or doves, right? The pigeons, the ones in all the cities.
Mm-hmm.
There's the pigeons that you see in like cities are not wild. They're not a wild species. They were domesticated by humans. You've heard of homing pigeons,
right?
So humans used to rely heavily on pigeons to deliver messages, even in World War I.
Somebody in my area is still doing it. So.
Yeah, there was like pigeons that like saved hundreds of thousands of lives in World War One. So once the telephone and the telex thing came along, humans just
telegraph.
Yeah, or you could even the clicking thing where you could send messages. What's it called?
It says Morse, but that's through telegraph.
Yeah, teletext. I don't know. There was a name for it. But anyways, once humans developed other communication techniques, we kind of abandoned the poor pigeon, and now pigeons are with kind of they're like domesticated animals that have been now just abandoned by humanity. So they kind of live off us in cities all around the world because they're not able to like go out into the wilderness.
But we release more feral cats to take over the pigeon population.
I mean, it's kind of similar, like if we all decided not to have dogs anymore, and there's just, some cities there are lots of dogs running around. So hopefully that's okay that I believe that, but
birds are a thing.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to know more about the question. I have no idea.
Yep.
Why it's.
Yep. We do believe in science. We are very fact and data driven creatures.
Mm-hmm. Does the stage 2 tune fix the wastegate rattle from the downpipe on the TTRS 8S?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, we
do hold that gate. So the OEM will leave it in a very like a neutral position, and the flapper is going to just sit there vibrating with the pulses of the engine. We do hold it shut so that it does not do that.
How do I know how much power I'm making on your tune for my car? So we list detailed horsepower and torque data for every tune we sell. There is a couple that we need to add.
Yeah, we're
but I would say 99% is covered. In fact, I would argue that we provide as much or more detailed data about power than anyone else.
Yeah.
And our dyno maps aren't like totally made up, or our advertised maps.
Yeah.
Like some companies.
Yeah, our OEM numbers generally match very well to the OEM claims. So.
Yeah, and you'll see a lot of really overly smooth dynos out there where it's literally like 5 data points across the entire power band. So we provide more high resolution data, but it does tend to look less smooth because there's less smoothing. But the reality is your engine produces the power that's measured is actually bounces around.
Yeah, if you actually zoom into that point, like if you really want the true data, it's it's this big dithering bouncing because your cylinder compression events.
It's like a cloud of data.
It's a scatter plot.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. It's on the product page for every tune, so I don't think we need to tell people step by step clicks. But go to the product page, scroll down, you'll see all the dynos there. You can. Even some of them are interactive.
Yeah, it gets a little murky when you're kind of between stages. Like stage 1, ideally, we dyno those with all stock hardware. Yet you can still upgrade to that from there with like intakes and intercoolers and some other performance adders. So you'll get closer to like the next stage of power or whatever the next calibration up would be. But it gives you a good idea of where you're kind of landing still.
Are the TTE 720s worth it on pump for the RS5? Or would you say only do it if E85? What is range like since E85 plus the extra power would definitely hurt miles per gallon? This isn't for my daily, but not a lot of E85 pumps near me.
That's a tricky one.
I think stage 1 or 2. So say stage. Well, we don't have stage 2, right?
Yeah.
Stage 1.
Yeah, there was
E85 is very fast.
Mm-hmm.
You do not need. I would say that's as fast or faster than 720s on stage 1 pump gas.
Sure.
However, the 720s on E85 is redonkulous. And if I were you, I would buy 55-gallon drums of E85 just to be able to experience it. I just got done driving the car.
Oh, that's right. You were
for a week.
Yeah.
And I mean, we got all sorts of Teslas around here, and nobody can touch this car. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's really fun. So you're going to get really fast acceleration on the stock turbos, especially on the E85.
Mm-hmm.
But the 720 E85 file is a whole nother level. It's as fast as anything I've ever driven. And it's kind of insane that you can have a car that's that nice, that reliable, that comfortable, and that fast.
And just refined. Like it's
comfortable, refined. I mean, it
drives like a stock car.
That kind of power and acceleration used to be in like a gutted car with no AC, where the windshield would crack sometimes, from the suspension stiffness or whatever. And the kind of lag that you used to have to accept to get that kind of acceleration.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's ridiculous. So I strongly recommend. I think the RS5 is very potent with the TT 720s.
Yeah, and I mean on pump fuel, it is a noticeable.
It's still very.
You're picking up another like 80, 90, I think horsepower over the stock turbos. So.
You should still do it even on 93 or 91, but the difference isn't going to be as big,
transformative.
But the fact that you can go E85 on the 720s to me would put me over the edge.
Mm-hmm.
So. Yeah, and that's just I literally just got out of the car 2 hours ago. It's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest challenge is like try not to get arrested.
It happens. Things happen quickly. Yeah.
Just got myself a B8.5 S5. I was wondering if I go stage 1 ECU, TCU, should I worry about my cats?
I mean, we talk about this one a lot too. The cats, they age out. The stage 1 tunes not necessarily going to, degrade their lifespan really any more than they would stock. I mean, obviously you're flowing more volume through them, so there's that. But it's, we maintain all of the stock, EGT models and controls and feedbacks and all that. So we do everything we can to prolong the life as much as possible. So of like any other, tunes out there, I think it's probably the most refined and safe for the stock catalyst system. It's to the point where we have like CARB certified or CARB exempt files for that as well. So,
man, the questions
we play nice with those.
Is there a reason you guys want to go with bigger injectors versus multiport on B8 3.0T? What are the advantages and disadvantages? We have seen what multiport can do. You think bigger injectors can do more?
Well, to be fair, you've seen a dyno chart.
One random.
It's not that doesn't explain the whole story of drivability, of the transition, of the the day-to-day living with it.
Yeah, there's a lot of hype.
So there's a very big difference between developing a chart or a poll and developing a nice refined file that's going to be have proper bank-to-bank fueling and trimming and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot more that goes into it. But the keeping DI versus going multiport, we're not locked into stone on anything. Ideally, DI should be the most cost-effective, straightforward, reliable way to go.
Much easier to install.
Much less complicated, much less, just hassle.
It's also the best way to ensure that the fuel is actually in the combustion chamber.
It's a much better way to inject fuel into the
even though there's injectors injecting in the ports, you can get quite a bit cylinder variation with reversion, and we used to see this a lot in port injection during our port injection days, where some cylinders would be starved even though there was supposedly the same amount of fuel being injected.
Yeah, and doing MPI injection always it's a challenging just system to manage. A lot of people overlook the fact that with an MPI system inherently, and I'm not saying you can't run it or it won't work. But there are considerations a lot of people don't think of. Like you've got this very lean charge of fuel usually coming into the cylinder first before the DI injector comes in. You're getting what you're supplementing it with from your port injector into the chamber. So you've got to be really careful about how you apply that, how it's getting into the chamber, and what that mixture is doing before you inject the remainder of your fuel demand from the DI injector. So it's not nearly as
installing
straightforward.
six injectors and flashing a tune is so much easier than
doing a DI side. Yeah, DI only.
But like Nate said, it's not to say we couldn't do DI MPI. It's just we can. We obviously have both choices.
Yeah.
I think for the other company out there, MPI is their only option, and they're partnering with someone who already did all the engineering on that. So they're now, working on calibrating something for it. But what they did is a limitation of their capabilities. We don't have any limitations. We do advanced hardware engineering and software engineering and everything in between. We do it all here. We don't rely on.
We have MPI stuff in the works as well, just because we're trying to keep it DI. It's been obviously just the development path has been long, so we're working on a number of different solutions. So we're not locked into anything, but we'd ideally like to keep it all DI if we can.
Mm-hmm.
It would be the best option in my opinion.
All right. You mentioned that you and Nate were working together on projects before 034 was a company. How did you two meet, and how did you start working together? Well, it was actually, I believe we probably met on the Quattro list, probably,
It was definitely,
which would have been like in the late 90s.
So there's things called email lists.
Yeah.
So the pre-form
where you would just sit and wait for emails to drop in your inbox, and you'd reply to it, and you would all discuss threads and topics, through email responses. And so Nate and I would have gotten to know each other then. And Nate was one of the people I saw in the community. And again, this is 25 years ago, at least, who was doing more advanced modifications to his car and was very knowledgeable and wasn't afraid to jump in. And so I believe you had turboed your 90.
I did
with the CIS.
Well, I had my 5000 Quattro was my first one back then, and I had done a bunch of random stuff on there. But yeah, like the normal chip tune, wastegate stuff, and a bunch of other mods
on
that thing. And then I picked up what did I have next? Was it the 4000?
Well, you had
I had the 90. I had the 90 next.
The red 90.
One, yeah. And then I did a 10 valve on that, and then that got the V8 and a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, but at the time, we were all swapping turbo motors into these cars, but there was no fuel system or engine management solution. So we were kind of cobbling together the CIS systems, and you could kind of max those out at like 160 to 180 horsepower, and then you were done. Up from 130, which was nice. But so when I started bringing the EFI stuff out, Nate was very interested in that, and I think Nate bought this. I had basically the second year.
I had the super early. We had a supplemental fueler or supplemental injection control.
Yeah, that's right. You started with
it was like this. I mean, you look at it now. It was like this.
Well, no, I think you used
sheet metal.
What I called the original ECU.
Yes.
As a supplementary injector controller. Yeah. Which I did as well. So, and then we kept developing. Me and this engineer kept developing the software to be more to make more capabilities of the hardware that was in this electronic controlling unit. And so Nate was one of the first people. Nate built a website documenting how he installed it on his car. He had wiring schematics and detailed information. So I started linking to him just as he was kind of a social media influencer.
Yeah, just building an information.
So instead of spending a lot of time doing instructions, I just would off my website started linking people to Nate's website, and then that led into us talking about like we should start a forum where we can help people install these. And so motorgeek.com was initially purely the support forum, and then we had a chit chat
it was like 034 EFI and chit chat
and then the chit chat just took off, and people were like talking about projects and this. So then we decided to just split out and add a bunch of so this was all like 2003 2004, and then I went full-time in 2005. I quit my day job, and immediately I approached Nate about like, hey, would you be interested in coming out
It's
to
still
work with me?
it's still chit chat. You go to
It
Motor
is still
Geek.
chit-chat.
Yeah,
It's all still there.
we sold the site, but yeah, all of the content's still there. Yeah, you can go to motorgeek.com, chit chat projects. Yep.
And then I think Nate moved out with all his stuff in like the summer of 05.
Yep.
So
So
basically 2-3 months after I went full time.
Yep.
But no, I mean we were always doing Audi. Like we met doing Audi stuff, and then it just kind of parlayed into everything else. And it's pretty crazy what we've done together. You know?
it's been a
it's
been a long road.
Yeah,
a lot has happened.
I owe a lot of my life to a handful of relationships, that I developed and we developed, or I developed with other people, and you just never know. You just never know who you meet.
Yeah,
it could just be some random person you meet on Facebook.
Yeah,
you start private messaging.
And it's just such a random. Had I not bought a 5,000 Quattro when I was 18, and had I not got on this mailing list, and be a very different place right now.
Yeah. So there is something about making a commitment and really kind of sticking it through with someone through thick and thin. And at this point, my relationship with you has lasted longer than just
that's a fair point.
Definitely lasted longer than my marriage.
Yep.
Which lasted over 20 years. So yeah, good stuff. All right. I'm looking to go stage 1 this summer through the warmer months. How much of a change would I see if I went straight to stage 2? That includes the Wagner.
The intercooler. You can do the intercooler.
Sounds like a B9.
I would suggest, getting cooling mods on there first and foremost is always kind of my preferred modification path. So there's no reason not to get a Wagner intercooler on there.
Yeah, you can run it without. In the summer months, you'll need it more. So it's up to you. I mean, if it's a financial thing, wait until you can afford it, but you will be making some compromises in power and performance without it. So the sooner you get it, the sooner you'll realize the benefits. There are substantial benefits to running it, and you need the intercooler to get those.
Yeah.
Have you guys considered a single turbo kit for the B5 S4? That's pretty funny.
Write that down.
So we actually innovated the B5 S4 single turbo.
As a kit, yeah. There was a
not only as a kit, as a
no, there were a couple of guys doing it around then, but it's like nothing. It was all handmade,
bonkers race cars and things like that. But as far as like a nice installation in that spot, we brought that kit out and popularized doing the single turbo. I think we sold it for 2 or 3 years. We sold hundreds and hundreds of them. I still see them pop up for sale every now and again.
Oh yeah.
And then people have knocked them off, like the guy, the B5 project. What's that site? B5 Project B5 PB5. I think he basically got one of our kits and knocked it off. Yeah, and there was a couple other smaller guys like that's sent it to China and knocked it off. He may have changed it since then, but initially it was an exact replica.
Yep.
So we moved on from all that. Probably like in 2013, I think we probably sold our last one around then, maybe 2014. But yeah, no, we brought that to market. So, but yeah, it's been probably 10 years since we sold one. Any word if TTE is doing a larger hybrid or full frame turbos for the B9 RS5? We get asked this all the time. I talked to them about it. Right now the 720s are pretty good, and given kind of I think you're going to need a built motor to do.
Yeah, we're kind of at that point where we don't really want to push much more.
And with a built motor, we could even get more out of the 720s. So if you want to build your motor, I would say if you want more power than 720s, it's time to build a motor with rods and pistons and head studs, and then go from there. But yes, bigger turbos will be coming, but it's a moot point if you don't have a built motor. And I can pretty much guarantee you don't. Yeah. You'd be one of a handful of people who've built a motor so far. So that would be what you should be focused on right now. 4M Q7 3.0T release expected.
It's expected to soon, yes.
Before the summer. We would like to release it yesterday, so we're working on it very hard. It will be out very soon.
Yep.
Can I upgrade my injectors prior to going stage 3? I'm currently running 034 stage 2 plus.
No, you need to the injectors need to be matched with the file, specifically for
and the turbo and everything.
So no, we don't have a just injector file on that stage.
It's a spec kit of turbo injectors, fueling.
Yep.
Yeah. Open versus closed air intake on B8.5 S5. Will HX mitigate some of the higher IAT with open air temps, or does it not matter?
The intake air temp is not really. I mean,
it's
going to depend.
There's no. If you're talking about our intakes, there is no elevated IATs.
Yes,
I don't know where that's.
Yeah, it's shielded up. I mean, nearly directly to the hood, and then all of the fresh air inlet is from the original scoop that comes up over the radiator, and then the whole light.
I'd like to know from whoever asked this, where are you getting this?
Well, there are some that are just a filter on a stick where it's kind of
different.
In there
if they're referring to other people's intakes, I mean, maybe there's a company that makes an inlet that draws air from between the header, the manifold runners. I don't know, but I mean, all we can talk about is our intakes, and we don't even have a closed intake for the B8s. But ours, it does. Once you shut the hood, it's the top of the shroud or shield is very close to the hood, and then there's a huge flow of fresh air from the front of the car when the car is moving. So no, there is no elevated IATs with our intakes. If you did use a poorly designed intake that did draw in hotter air, there would be an increase in IATs. A bigger better intercooler heat exchanger would help with that, but you're still going to be higher. Those higher IATs are just going to move your entire graph. Let's say you graphed your air intake temps, just going to move the whole thing up some amount. So the intercooler, if you're adding 4 degrees, the intercooler will still cool the same amount, but it's not going to get rid of the extra 4 degrees. So you don't want an intake that gives you higher IATs. That's just a terrible idea. And you're not going to be able to make up for it with an intercooler, because on the B8 platform, intercooler size is maxed out at this point. We can't fit anything bigger than that. Now, if we were talking about an air-to-air type setup like on a B9 S4, yes, you could put an even bigger intercooler to get rid of the extra heat. But on the B8, since the variable of intercooling is set, then if you add any heat into it, it's just going to add to the overheat. Someone's saying there's nothing wrong with port injection on the B8 platform, especially when it's tuned in right. Sure.
we never said there was.
There's also nothing wrong with direct injection, and I would argue that direct injection is a better, more accurate way to do it. But obviously MPI works, and what I said was that we can do either. It's not like we can't do MPI. I don't know if that's somebody out there thinks that like just because we did the better option B means we can't do the lesser option A. But we've never said that MPI can't work.
No, it's a well, we already talked about.
And tuning it correctly is a big factor.
It's the install, it's the calibration, the considerations that you need to make around it, and all
that. Any ideas of a carbon inlet for B9, B9.5, 2.9 TTs? Yes, we have a super duper carbon fiber inlet, coming soon. So stay tuned. It's very nice. It's in the manufacturing phase still.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we need a bigger high pressure fuel pump along with new injector for B9. You'll want the high flow. Our high flow.
Oh heck yeah! You'll want the high flow pump. You'll need bigger than stock reserve.
You'll need our upgrade, but you won't need anything beyond.
There's a couple of CREC questions. Somebody's asking if the R2.0 stage 1 is the latest, and if and when E85 will be available for calibrations. Yes, R2.0 is the latest file. That is the current up-to-date CREC file, and you will see E85 files for it as well. So those are both live and on the server right now, and we'll be posting more information on our website about those very soon.
Do I need to replace the transmission insert bolt when I install my B8 S4? It depends. So just this past week, we started including grade 12.9 bolts with all of our with our B8 and B9 transmission inserts. So if your insert that you buy from us comes with these bolts, then you do not. These are basically, reusable. I wouldn't say infinite because nothing is infinite. No, there's no infinite bolt on Earth. But these never need to be replaced as long as they're not damaged or they're torqued properly. These are reusable because the torque specification doesn't stretch the bolt or change the physical properties of the bolt in any way. We also still sell the factory bolts. These are the factory bolts. This is a torque to yield stretch bolt, which means that the torque specification takes the bolt past its torque limit and stretches it. And so it remains in that tightened, over torqued state. But once you loosen it, if you use it again, you're going to stretch it a second time. And bolts like this from the factory should only be used once, according to the manufacturer, and it's a good idea. Sometimes you can get 2 or 3 uses out of them. At some point, the stretch step or procedure will just break because this bolt can only stretch so far so many times. So I think in practice, you could say you could use it 2 or 3 times, but at the dealership, they're going to replace these every time they're removed. But since these bolts are harder and higher grade, and they're not ever stretched, then they're infinitely reusable. So again, if you've bought one of these inserts in the past, you didn't get these bolts because we just started shipping these last week. All right. And we do, like I said, still sell the factory bolts, or I strongly recommend just using the ones we provide. And we actually, we lower the price a little bit. Yeah. So we included the bolts and we lowered the price a little bit as well. So if you were thinking about that, now's a good time to do that. 034 is one of the best go-fast companies out there. Is there going to be tunes to support more torque or power for the Stage 3 EA839 platform when using the 034 bottom end engine package upgrade?
Yep, we'll have built motor stuff coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we've said before, there's more power on 810, Pure 750.
720s.
Those tunes are, what's that?
And the 720s as well.
Oh, and the 720s. There's more power in those turbos, but we manage the torque to not overpower the bottom end, especially the rods and things like that. So, someone's asking about phones and email support. So as always, we are doing all of our support through email, which we've described in the past, why we do it and why it's better. We do take appointments with customers for phone calls. If there's something that really needs to be discussed by phone, we will be happy to. In fact, we make phone calls to customers daily, many times a day. But we would not be able to do the amount or type of support we do by phones. There's no way, with all the tuning support and the tech support and things like that.
Yeah.
Returns and RMAs, those should be done through email because it's a documented process.
Well, all of it is, ideally you have a paper trail for your support, right? So if you want to go back and reference what was discussed or see, what the specific details were, it's a very, all of the products and all the support cases we're dealing with are a very technical nature. It's not a,
Yeah. And another thing is, like, if you want to talk to someone about your car and like what you want to do to it and things like that, and discuss options, again, that's a perfect case for setting up an appointment, and we would be happy to speak with you. So just send in an email initially and request an appointment, and we will go from there. What's safe to push the motor on a 2022 Audi S4? We discussed this extensively in last week's live chats.
Oh, you have the 3 and 3 plus.
We offer our stage 3 standard output file, and we offer a stage 3 plus high output file, and both are safe, but the high output file gets you closer to the limit, and so there are health checks and specification checks that we would want to do with you before you flash that. But both files are proven to be safe. Customers have had engine failures on all stages in S4s, including stock. And there's a substantial number of stock failures, but the overall failure rate on these cars is still very low. So any tune that we offer is safe. And we have many people running all of our stage 3 files.
Yeah, as we said last time too, like especially the 3 plus stuff, read all of the prerequisites for that. Like we require logs, we require health checks essentially to make sure all of your components are installed correctly, they're working correctly, before you go full 3 plus and up to that level. So.
Yeah. Someone says, now I'm worried about my subframe mounting bolts. I reused the factory when installing the 034 subframe mounts. Is that an issue? If they torqued down okay and you got the 90 degrees,
you're
in,
probably okay. But the subframes, it is a good one to swap.
Probably okay, but if you start seeing any loosening or clunking, it's not a bad idea. It wouldn't be hard to just get some new bolts and do it one weekend. Just throw your car up in the air and change one out at a time. It's hard to say. I mean, technically, yes, you should replace them. It's hard to say whether you'll ever have a problem with it or not. We've got number 3. That's done. Do we want to deal with 2?
I mean, we can. That's just an industry.
Someone's asking, how do you guys protect your tunes from being copied?
It depends on the platform. I mean, we could spend all of our time just locking everyone out, and doing all these crazy special things that keep people out. At the end of the day, though, I mean, it's all going to pipe down through the OEM flash protocol, just like everybody else. So there's only so much you can do without it being, a massive hurdle and barrier to entry, basically for any new platform. So the OEM systems have a number of different encryptions and whatnot in there, so it's not super easy. But it's not something we spend, all of our time on either, because it's, if someone's eager enough, they're going to get it.
Yeah. The thing about tunes is, I don't know, maybe it's kind of like music. Like there's always the next version coming out. And, so if you steal our tunes from 2 years ago, we're going to come out with better versions of it. And I think generally the market doesn't like buying stolen stuff. And so if it gets out there that's something that's been copied, it doesn't bode well. But everything gets stolen eventually, and all our focus is on innovating, developing, moving forward. And I think it's a very successful position for us to take. I think stealing and trying to sell someone's stolen files is maybe a good opportunity if you don't know what you're doing, but it's a pretty limited opportunity.
Yeah. And you're still left with generally no way to distribute it.
Yeah. Does the B9 frontmount intercooler block the radiator? Could it prevent proper engine cooling? It does to an extent, to a degree.
Yeah, I mean, anything you put in front of the radiator is going to, impact the airflow.
Unfortunately, there's no free lunch there. However, blocking it even more is not a good idea. And so, there is a kit out there. That's what's it called? The race kit.
Yeah.
That
it's like a 5-inch core.
Substantially blocks the radiator. So it could work okay for drag racing or something like that. But
they don't recommend it for
for road course stuff. Yeah, it's a big heat sink for the most part. I mean, that's good for a certain duration of pull.
Someone's asking, where are you guys at with 8Y RS3 support other than what Hank is doing? Was Hank supporting 8Y RS3s? I mean, unless you want to build like an 8-second drag car, I'm not sure.
It's different Cyvex for them.
Yeah, it's the Cyvex stuff, which again, unless you want to like a race car or something like that. As far as tuning supports, it's been pretty low on the priority due to like the number of customers in the market. Also, the ECU is still not very accessible. We have a full line of products for the 8Y RS3, including suspension and inserts and mounts and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I mean, you can look on our website to see what we currently support. It does seem the market does seem to be heating up. There do appear to be more people looking for more products. The DAZA, the whole DAZA thing kind of left a bad taste in our mouth when it comes to that market and those customers.
Yeah, that market was tricky.
So, I mean, for now, we're really focused on B8 and B9, and we're doing a lot with Mark 7 MQB as well. And we have some really cool new stuff coming soon with Q7, CREC updates, some 1AT TSI stuff, the B9 A4 tunes. So there's a lot of good stuff coming. I'm sure eventually we will offer a DNWA tune. Very happy B8.5 Stage 2 S4 034 customer. In your opinion, what year is the best for the newer B9 S4?
Well, no, never so much. I'd say like the early 8.5 is probably a good mix.
Like 20,
yeah,
20,
like
21
before they updated all the TCU stuff, so you can still get a full TCU tune on there, but you get a little bit of the facelift action.
B9.5 it's a nicer car, but I think as far as power and performance, I don't think it really matters.
Yeah, other than the TCU tune at this point, they're all pretty solid. And great to hear you like the current stuff.
Any suggestions before tuning, such as maintenance?
Maintenance is
yes.
great. You have to be on top of your maintenance. I mean, maintenance is first and foremost before any modification work. You got to make sure that your stock stuff is doing what it should be, how it should be, and in a healthy, reliable way.
Mm-hmm. Any plans for a more aggressive cam profile for the B8 3.0T? No. We have a really nice cam set already on the market. It has sold okay, but I thought we would sell a lot more of them.
Yeah, and we
won't be able to justify doing anything different. Without seeing more success from the current one.
Right, and you are. I mean, with forced induction stuff, you got to be careful too where you land with your cams, because you can't really have it. Or you don't want any overlap really. You've got to keep that cylinder charge, controlled. You're not blending between the intake and exhaust valves.
Well, we're consistently seeing 30 to 40 wheel on the current cams. You're going to have a hard time getting better results.
Yeah, and then, you've got to look at, you're limited on lift. You start getting spring stack, and then your lobe sweeps inside the head. So there's only so much you can do. You can put this big, gnarly cam in there and just think you're going to make a bunch of power with it. I mean, it's a pretty substantial increase now with the cams we've got.
Does a stage 2 pops and bangs destroy the muffler? Not really.
I mean,
it could.
It's got some, sure, it's more...
Depends on the muffler.
I don't know of a single muffler issue that we've had, though, that's been, at least on the OEM side.
If you had a muffler that had chambers that were packed with like fiberglass, which there are mufflers.
I've seen OEMs pack out. Not OEMs, aftermarket stuff pack out.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
But if you have a muffler that's all metal inside and just uses chambers and resonance tuning, you're not going to damage them. Mm-hmm. The cat is what gets damaged the most, because it's much more sensitive and much more vulnerable to heat damage like that. Are you guys working on a B9 A4 A5 tune? Yes, we are. Like I just mentioned, something we're actively working on, and we'll bring to market soon. DAZA RS3 TCU tune. What does option 4000 on K/D mean?
So that's the launch control. So we give you a number of hold points essentially on the pedal, and then there's an additional, when you actually hit the kickdown switch on the pedal, it'll bump up to the next setting that it lists in the calibration.
So that's how you adjust it. Hit up tuning support, tuning at 034motorsport.com. If you have more questions about that.
Yep.
Are the lowering links adjustable after installing to dial in the final height? It would be ideal to keep from removing the link from the prone to brake tab.
I think those are turnbuckles, right? Yeah, those should be adjustable.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. You can just turn. You can just twist the body.
Is it a male female or is it a turnbuckle?
No, it's a male. I mean, there's
I
a.
can't remember. I gotta look at that one again.
Yeah, it doesn't say in the instructions.
I think you can.
Yeah, I think you just turn the body and you can adjust the height that way. Yeah, because they should be reverse threads. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a turnbuckle. You can just spin the body.
Yeah, you just spin the body. There should be instructions.
Mhm.
Does it say in the instructions? I'm just confused as to why.
Yeah, well, that's a question. I'll have to dig it up.
Is it possible there's a ghost in the machine after your tune is deleted? I purchased B9 S5 that had your tune deleted.
I don't know what the question is.
What does that mean?
I mean, our flashing server will have record of that, and you have access to that tune still. So maybe that's the ghost. It lives on. But no, it's stock is stock on the ECU. It's going to be back to 100% OEM calibration.
Someone asked a question about shifting. We need to know what the application is before we can answer that. Why doesn't the B9 RS5 make more power easily like a G80, G82 M3, M4?
It makes a lot of power pretty easily, but I mean, you're going to be constrained with whatever, the power adders that are on the motor and what the OEM decisions were, and so there's not.
I mean, I think it's pretty clear that the BMWs come with bigger turbos,
more headroom, yeah.
So there's more headroom built in. The RS5, you need to spend the money on a turbo kit, and then I believe you're right there with the BMWs. The BMWs cost what, 30-40 grand more. So, if you take into account all the variables, it makes sense. But yeah, if you want to get, the power and performance of a $110,000 car for $60,000, that's just not how it works. I mean, maybe in the American muscle car world, you could do that. Maybe you can get like a Dodge Hemi, Ladybug, something or another, and pump that up to 800 horsepower.
Ladybug,
something like that. Why do you say if you install main studs, you have to hone with them on? Can I just pull OEM studs out and drop in the main studs? The reason is the factory uses bolts, and they produce a certain amount of clamping force. The studs, the entire point of the stud is to produce more clamping force than the factory. But when you apply additional clamping force, it does, those main caps load up when they're torqued. So from the factory, when your block is machined, the main caps are installed. There's bolts, factory bolts are tightened down, and then they line bore it, right? So everything gets tightened, it deforms, then they line bore it back to round. So whenever you take that apart and put it back together, as long as you torque it back to that factory setting, it's perfectly round. When you go in and put our studs in, you apply even more torque, so you get a new amount of deformation. So again, you need to go through there and line. Just the same, if you install studs on a block and you line hone it, if you ever go back to factory bolts, you have to reline hone it again. But what we're talking about is like 10,000th of an inch differences here, and it doesn't take much to distort, a big chunk of aluminum. The accuracy and the alignment of that bore is critical. You mentioned earlier that you would need a built motor to get more than 720 horsepower on the RS5. Do S4, S5 cars with TTA10 require to be built to get to that much power?
I mean, they're basically at the same point.
It's not a horsepower thing; it's the torque.
Yeah.
And so the torque is what's being limited. So even the A10 cars can make more torque and power.
Yeah.
With a built motor.
Yeah. The RS5's got a slight advantage in that it's got a little lower compression ratio. But
yeah.
I mean, beyond that, that's about it.
Yeah. They both appear to make similar amounts of power. I want to get this one. Why is the dying plus lowering strategy different between the B8.5 S4, 1 inch around, all around, and B8.5 S5, 1.5, 1.25 inch rear models? what happened to 034's version of the OEM spring for the B8.5 S5? We don't just have something where we only lower 1 inch on every car. So, you know, we take every car and we look at it. The S5 has bigger fenders and has more room to lower. And so we took advantage of that fact and changed the lowering slightly. You're talking about a 1/2 inch. It's a very relatively small amount. It looks a lot like more on paper. But no, that is our Dynamic Plus version. And we apply, you know, kind of our perspective and criteria to every car that we design a spring for. And I would say that the overall driving and performance experience is going to be similar between the two, but we will take advantage of different variables as they're available. One last one we should jump on.
Oh my goodness, I didn't realize we were that far into it.
Yeah.
Somebody's asking again if E85 is going to be a thing for the CREC and when we'll launch it. It's already on the server. I think it's the 3rd time now. So go ahead and take a look at the flashing portal. You should see E85 up there right now.
If you haven't, go look.
Except for stage 1 is up and 2 is coming very quickly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're out of time. So thank you for joining us once again. Appreciate it.
Flew by. Yeah, we didn't get to any of or all the questions.
Yeah, we ran out of time. Sorry about if we didn't get to your question.
Yep.
All right, we'll see you guys next week. Cheers.